Welcome to Porn Talk with Powerful Eric. End the porn habit. Reclaim your power. Eric Zuzak, aka Powerful Eric, has been in 12-step programs for almost 20 years with little success. Then one day he stumbled on the science of mindfulness to combat addictions. Powerless Eric died and Powerful Eric was born. Learn from Eric's mistakes and get empowered now. Here's your host, Powerful Eric.
All right, Mary, you ready?
I'm ready.
Welcome to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. The purpose of this show is not just to break addictions, but it's about breaking belief systems because we are bound by self-imposed and societal chains. Break those chains, and we've got a person with us today that's going to help break some of those chains. She's a little rebellious, I guess you could say, because she is a ex-nun. Her name is Mary Fagan. She's an author. She's a poet. She's a teacher. And the reason I have her here today, I've come to know Mary, and she's a really interesting person. In fact, I would go so far to say, Mary, that I like to use this term Renaissance man or Renaissance person. From everything I've learned about you, I consider you a Renaissance person. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. May you please share a poem that may help guys addicted and or their significant others.
Grandmama God, what about sex? Should I want it? Do you bless it? May I have some? What's it for? Mary, and this is Grandmama God speaking. Mary, my child, shh, child. Slow down and feel the buzzing in your head. Then feel the buzzing in your body. That buzz is sexual, honey. It's life itself. You are alive, daughter of mine. You are alive because of sex. You are alive because of wanting. You are alive because of desire, because of longing, because of yearning. You are alive because your mama and your daddy were each lonely by themselves. They wanted connection, union, communion. Sex is the celebration of folks longing for union. And it's continual communion, too, if you dare to live in ecstasy. Mary, my daughter, ask me another question. You know, the question all daughters dream of asking. Don't be shy, girl. I want to tell you. Grandmama God, please, do you ever have sex? Oh, Mary, Granddaddy God and I live in continual communion. We live in ecstasy. We are that ecstasy. We are that love, that sex, that exuberant meeting. Every minute, every second, we find each other in the dark and come together. Every minute, Mary, every second, sparks fly and stars are born as we unite in joy. Granddaddy God and I, why, come to think of it, sex is all we ever do.
Incredible, Mary. Absolutely incredible. I've heard that before, and oh my gosh.
It still surprises me.
I mean, it's priceless. It really is. There's so much there. Your poem has like 100 memes built into it. I'm not kidding. Wow. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, wow.
That poem still surprises me. We are called to live in ecstasy. I believe it.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing about pornography. People, of course, are naturally drawn to it.
Yes.
It's a natural, biological, it's a natural thing.
Yes.
And it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And that's one of the challenges I have with the show is I don't want to say you are doing a bad thing or I'm doing a bad thing. It's just that for me, it became very, very unhealthy and addictive. And I had wished that I wasn't exposed to it. It was negative. Now, there's other people that can be exposed to it and put it down and be fine and go on their way. But I know for a fact there's millions of people that can't. And where it gets really sad and disturbing is with sex trafficking for pornography and young kids. I don't want to shame myself anymore about it. I don't do it anymore, but I don't want to shame myself, and I don't want to shame other people too that may be still in the midst of it, because sex is a natural thing. And your poem, the very end there, saying that
Granddaddy God and I, why, come to think of it, sex is all we ever do.
Yeah, sex is all we ever do.
Connection is all we ever do. Union. Now, maybe pornography isn't always connection. It could be self-love, but it could be disconnecting.
Right, exactly. And that's what's missing there is the connection. For me,
right,
I was disconnected. It disconnected me from people and places and myself. I'm trying to get away from judging it as bad or negative, and that it is, and it affects people differently. And for me, it was very negative.
It's so much like chocolate. Chocolate can be used for good or bad.
You can have a little chocolate, and that's fine.
That's right.
It's the saying is, a candy bar a day keeps the doctor away. Isn't that what it is?
That's right. That's what my grandmother used to say.
Yeah, it's not a candy bar. It's an apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? A candy bar a day may not be such a good thing.
Right.
And Mary, I'm 49. You're 80, and give me your perspective on pornography.
Well, I really liked what you said. A little bit might be all right. If somebody is single and wants a little bit because they want to masturbate and get that sexual tension out, or even just for self-love, if that can be a form of self-love, and it's not 4 times a day or something.
Yeah.
It seems healthy.
Right. Mm-hmm. One of my very good friends, he's got a young boy that he's raising. He caught him with pornography. He didn't shame him. He said that, this is a natural thing you're doing, but, you got to be careful. It is addictive.
Right. So is chocolate. Yeah.
Yep, so is chocolate. Is there maybe 1 or 2 more poems that you want to share?
And I think I know this one by heart. We'll see. Don't know? I don't know, and I don't want to know. I say no to the judge in me that wants to try just one more case. I close the books. Then for the hell of it, I burn them. My inner courtroom is in ashes. I take the blind old judge's hand, pat his bottom like I'm sending a sleepy child to bed. He shuffles off to rest in peace. I've pulled the rug out of my mind, and now the bottom drops out too. So here I am in the dumb wonderland of my heart, where I know nothing and understand nothing. Gee whiz, it's quiet for a change. I just don't know.
Amazing. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be putting your material out there. It needs to be out. I know you are putting it out there too, but I'm glad to help.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm really honored and grateful for this time with you. Really,
Sure.
really.
Sure.
And this is the poem I'm going to say at church this coming Sunday.
Okay.
It's called Party of One. One Friday, I should back it up. I lived in Atlanta a long time, and I was an elementary art teacher my last 7 years there. So that was during that time. Mm-hmm. Okay. One Friday, I drove from Atlanta to Hilton Head Island. I attended an art teachers conference at that lovely place. That evening, I dressed up, found my way to a fancy restaurant, signed my name, and waited near the bar for a table. Soon the head waiter summoned me, announcing loudly, "Fagin, party of one." I stood up, amused and embarrassed. I blushed, grinned, looked at the floor, and followed him. What he really said to me is this: "Mary Fagin, it's high time you claim your joy." Well, I'm practicing. I practice being alone and full of life. I sit still and feel the buzz inside me like a celebration. Love is the hostess. I'm the guest of honor, and my body, really my heart, is the party place where I turn off my mind and feel my body's breath, its heartbeat, and its hum. As I arrive, dear friends pop up from behind the furniture. Surprise Mary, they call. They clap and cheer for me. My family and the church folks drop in too. We celebrate together like it's the 4th of July. When love is in charge in my heart, I'm a party of one.
Party of one. Love it. Love it. Mary, you are such an interesting person. You obviously teach art classes, and the reason I know that because I was in one of them. It was awesome.
Thank you.
To me, art is a form of mindfulness, and a lot of people think of mindfulness, they think of meditation, but it's much, much, much more than that. For me, drawing, I like to draw, is one of the most mindful things that I can do. Like when I'm drawing, I don't think of anything else. In fact, it's really hard to think of something else. When I'm drawing, I like to draw faces. And when I draw faces, I kind of forget about the world, forget about my problems, and I'm just focusing on drawing that line. How can art or drawing help someone that may have an addiction? Or
I'm glad that you brought up art, and I love drawing faces also. And I have a little sketch pad in my purse. And recently I took somebody to the doctor, and while I was in the waiting room, I drew somebody else, somebody who was waiting. And then she said, "How did you do that?" And I gave it to her. I know what you mean exactly, and I love how you said it. I think I have to go into some theory about left brain and right brain.
Please do.
And the left brain is verbal. All our verbal thoughts there. Math, and all our school subjects, practically. Geography, history, math, science, all that's left brain.
Mm-hmm.
Recess, no, and, playing around. Baseball's a beautiful combination of both. You know the theory, you know the rules, you got to know the rules. But then you're probably in the zone of quiet mind, I would think, and just watching that ball. It's so healthy for us to get out of our left brain. The right brain senses, hears, sees, smells, tastes, touches. And when it's seeing and really focused, it is quiet in there. It's such a relief. And the better I see then, of course, the better my drawing will be, and that just takes practice. It's not about talent much at all. It takes practice, that's all.
And what's the name of your class?
Right Brain Drawing.
Right Brain Drawing.
Through the community college, St. Louis Community College.
I just thought of a class title that Drawing for Addicts. Or
Drawing for Healing.
Much better. See, and I'm trying to get away from, I still, of the 20 years of that, I still want to put this label on myself, addict. And I'm drawing for healing. I love that.
I do too.
So anybody out there that's looking that maybe meditation isn't your form of mindfulness, maybe it could be drawing or painting, sculpting. Those are all very mindful activities.
That's right.
Yeah. In fact, one of the activities that Mary had us do in her class is she gave us all little kids' shoes. And we had to draw this shoe. And really, it's impossible not to be focused. If you're trying to draw that shoe, you really got to put all your other thoughts aside in order to do that. It's a super mindful activity. Highly recommend it. Mary, tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
All right. I grew up Catholic. Dear father, who was an Irish grocer with a 7th grade education, who did well, worked hard 6 days a week, and a very refined mother who played the cello and played the piano and had a college education and convent bred, boarding school for high school, pretty rigid.
Right, very rigid upbringing.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Not so with Daddy. Anyway, and then I went to Catholic grade school and got an awful notion of God.
Right.
Old Judge God, yeah. I was very afraid of him. And I became a nun because of that fear. Not because I wanted to, but because I felt like he was telling me to. And so that became a big point for healing. To change my understanding of God and be free. And be free to live from my heart, which my true God would want me to do, does want me to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. The word that comes to mind just for myself is shame. I felt a lot of shame as a young boy. I can relate to that old judge God.
Yeah, but I would think I didn't have as much shame as I had, what do you call it, the opposite that I was working from. But I became a perfectionist, scrupulous, so careful, such a good girl. So here's that poem.
Okay.
That old judge God is walking away. He's finished now. He never even existed. Well, he was as much God as I could imagine at the time. I used to think that old Judge God didn't want me to have you. Now I know he was all a bad dream. I see him shuffling down a dirt road. He's dragging a ragged black robe behind his bare, sagging ass. I'm ready for a bigger God now. I'm ready for a big-hearted, big-breasted grandmama God. I'm ready for a big-handed, big-hearted granddaddy God. I'm ready for a God bigger than 14 skies, bigger than the color orange expanded out in all directions, bigger than my longing for fullness multiplied to 40 zillion, bigger than my feeling of fullness when I am dancing with you and everyone we love is clapping stars to us. That's been the journey of my life, really, to keep on getting bigger and bigger concepts of the one.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yay, thank you. I can tell you how I began to get freer.
Sure.
In the convent. I would read and see quotes. I saw the quote, "The glory of God is a person fully alive." I said, what? That was radical for me in the 60s or whatever.
Yeah.
What other quote? Oh, there was a book in the convent library, "Holiness is Wholeness." What? Oh, and we had a scripture class from a nun who had just come back from a scripture class at Notre Dame, sharing what she'd learned. Mm-hmm. And she talked about the Abraham-Isaac sacrifice. Do you know that story? Do you
I'm
remember
familiar with it, but why don't you enlighten the audience?
Just basically, child sacrifice was common in the region where Abraham lived. Abraham, who began the Jewish religion. Child sacrifice was common.
Poem.
It's unfathomable.
Mary, tell us, how did you begin to leave that old
so
judge
Abraham
God
is taking
behind?
his young
How did
son
you
Isaac
start to leave
to
the nunnery?
sacrifice him? And in my old version of that story, God sees that Abraham is obedient and tells him, "You have obeyed me now. Put your son aside and get that lamb that's caught in the bushes," something like that. And Abraham does. Well, in the version of this nun who'd come back from Notre Dame, she says, Abraham had an insight. The true God would not ask this. And he got a bigger, better God, truer God. And then he did sacrifice a lamb, which is, not whatever advanced, but still, he got over child sacrifice. And,
right.
Yeah. And so I thought to myself about being a nun, maybe the true God would not ask this. Maybe I don't have to do this.
Right. Yeah.
She helped me. I just kept getting little clues about a bigger God.
Mary, most of the guys addicted to porn don't like themselves, and a common theme, and frankly I've heard this from a lot of guys, is I'm a piece of shit. And most guys have a judgmental voice inside their heads. Your book, Finding Grandmama God, talks about loving yourself. How can someone learn to love themselves?
I like the question. Many years ago, at least 30, I did a 2-week workshop on the island of Kauai with the authors of a book called Embracing Ourselves. The book helped me so much. I read it in 3 days and then went to the workshop months later. Mm-hmm. And the book talks about our inner selves, our critic, our pusher that wants to just get things done, our pleaser that wants to accommodate to other people. I have a big one of those I have to watch. Judge that judges myself or others. Mostly the critic judges me, and my judge just words. This is just words. Judges others. My clown, or show off or entertainer. Other selves, and different people have different selves. But basically, we'd have the critic, pusher, pleaser. So in the course of 2 weeks of all that introspection, and we got in small groups and talked from our inner selves, in those 2 weeks I discovered I did not have a kind inner voice. What a revelation.
Yeah.
And so I practiced giving myself one. I practiced calling myself honey. I practiced calling myself sweetheart. I practiced saying, you've done enough today, sit down.
How would you do that? Like in the mirror or just?
No, just inside.
Mm-hmm.
I would stop and, I'd catch the pusher saying, you can do more. Don't take a nap. You can finish those letters, whatever. And then I'd say, I'd hold my collar out. Is there another voice in there?
I love that. I love that. So walk me through that again specifically. So when the pusher voice comes up, and he may say something like, or she may say something like what?
It's not time for lunch. You can answer 10 more emails. Something like that.
Ah, okay. I see what you're saying. And so how did you?
I would catch her. I would hear it and say, is there another voice? But I'd have to kind of create it. It certainly wasn't automatic.
Yeah.
So I had to catch a critic too, catch the critic and stop.
I absolutely love it. Yeah. I do a similar thing. I just say stop, cancel, and sometimes I wear the rubber band, sometimes I don't. And I snap the rubber band and then I say the positive opposite. Heaven forbid something awful like I'm a piece of poo comes up into my mind. I'm going to stop, cancel. I release that thought. I'm a good person. I like myself. I'm the best. And I really use that a lot with my older son, Alexander, who's 5 now, is really starting to understand things like that. Tell him that he's a good boy, and that I love, there's an author named Zig Ziglar, and he has a quote that says, "You are designed for accomplishment. You are engineered for success, and you are endowed with the seeds of greatness." And I tell Alexander that quote all the time to build that inner voice in him.
That's wonderful. I love Stephen Levine, who isn't on the planet. A couple years ago he died. But I used to read his books. And the one sentence that I have probably said 1,000 times to somebody or to myself is, a positive thought held is less healing than a negative one met with mercy.
Say that again.
A positive thought held is less healing than a negative thought met with mercy. And if I'm by myself at my house, which I often am, I'll say mercy out loud. Mercy.
So what does that quote mean to you?
Well, it just means if I've got a negative thought, I don't have to say, ain't it awful? My stupid mind is still negative. I don't have to do any of that. I just have to say, mercy.
Oh, I love it. That is fantastic. I'm going to have to adopt that. Instead of trying to just squelch that thought.
And if I don't have a pet right now, but if I get a cat, her name might be Mercy. And then I could just hear myself saying that all the time. Mercy, come here. You know?
I used to have 2 cats. One was Bruce, the other one was Lee. Obviously a big Bruce Lee fan. So I love naming the cat a cool name like that, Mercy.
Okay, can I go back to the self-love for a minute?
Yeah. We'll just
thanks. Okay, I had kept a journal. That is so important. I kept a journal, and so some of that became poems because that's where I was writing. But so I would just sort of have mercy on myself and say when I accommodated, when I was hard on myself. Anyway, my writing to myself helped a lot. I just want to get that in there.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I've been keeping a journal for years. They're absolutely invaluable.
Yep. Okay.
Mary, you were married twice and divorced twice. What did you learn from your divorces, and did your exes have addictions or anything like that?
First husband was 7 years younger than I, although I'd just been out of the convent a few years. And so my emotional age might have been right in line with his, or even younger, who knows. And he had been to Vietnam as a photographer, artist, so he was an artist. And I think we both had post-traumatic stress. So I wouldn't say he was addicted, but I think both of us had troubles, had healing to do. And I accommodated. I pretty much did what he wanted to do. You want to move to Virginia? Yeah, okay. So I kind of thought love was doing what the other person wanted. Mm-hmm. And I have a poem called Accommodation.
Yeah, please.
Accommodation. I accommodated again. I gave my power away with a smile. I know a lot about how to do that. I also do know a lot about being alone. I'm just learning reciprocity. Just learning I listen to you and you listen to me. I love that kind of togetherness. I hate accommodation. It's a nasty, stinky, farty word. It's almost got the word commode in it. It smells like one. I accommodate when I'm in a trance, a childhood trance. Then I play nicey nice. Yes, sir, of course, sir. Like a poor tired all-night waitress or a candy-ass teacher's pet child. When I wake up from the trance, I cry. Then I'm free to be my funny, fresh self again, but wiser.
What did you say in the very beginning there about giving away your power?
With a smile. I give my power away with a smile.
Yeah. And see, that's one of the things that I am trying to impart on this show is for people to embrace their power that may feel powerless. Because for 20 years, well over 20 years, I gave away my power and said I was powerless. And here we are on Porn Talk with Powerful Eric.
I love it.
Thank you. And you know, that's one response that I get from a lot of people that know me. They're like, oh wow, that's really cool. I like that. Go ahead.
The great mystery, which I used to call God, but I'm avoiding that word God because it has heaviness with it. Okay, the great mystery, when it makes a pear tree, anything, it wants it to bloom full.
Yes. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think about, there are so many examples we could say, but an acorn.
Yeah.
If an acorn could talk, it would say, I can't be that. How could I be an oak tree? And the great force, the great source of everything says, you just wait.
Yeah. There's a tree called the General Sherman tree. It's one of the largest trees in the world, and it started from just the tiny little acorn. And somebody listening to the show right now may feel just like a tiny little acorn. They may feel inadequate, but with the right amount of sunshine and watering and time can become a General Sherman.
And we don't do it by ourselves. We do it with people who love us and with the force that's in us to bloom.
Yeah, and then that's another term that people that are into Star Wars like to say, the Force,
Yeah, right.
I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah, and as a poet, I love force and source rhymes, so I can play with that.
Well, we'll be waiting for that poem. Did you say all you wanted to about your ex-husband's divorce?
Oh, I didn't. No, I didn't. I got off the subject or something. Okay, so first husband was 2 years younger and a Vietnam veteran, and I accommodated. And the second husband was 7 years older and had Jewish upbringing, Jewish heritage, and was a bit of a patriarch. And I'm certain I accommodated during the courtship phase, during the year or so before we married. But I was playing around with asserting myself and being free and funny or whatever. Yeah,
and he was Jewish. So I'm sorry, this just sounds like...
It's all right.
Well, this sounds like a joke. An ex-Catholic nun marries a Jew. Sorry.
He wasn't currently a Jew, but he'd grown up with all that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And his mother was adorable, who had, gotten out of Europe at the time of the Holocaust and all that.
And just to let everybody know, Mary is 80 years old, so that's why she's talking about things like that.
Yeah, okay. So he was 7 years older, divorced with 4 children. And I did at that point, of course, I was getting older. I might have been 38, 39. I was getting to the edge of not being able to have children. And I did have some grief then I won't have my own children. I had some grief with that. Gave my power away with a smile. But I was infatuated with both these guys. And an author named Helen Fisher helped me so much. The 2002, I believe it is, National Geographic has an article that refers to her over and over, and it's all about infatuation. And it says that relationships, almost all of them, average 18 months of infatuation. And dopamine is the hormone in charge. And we are passionately in love. And it's a whole different thing because our hormones are so active. And dopamine is... Because Mother Nature wants couples who will then continue the human race. Okay.
Right.
After about 18 months, if the relationship has enough roots to it, and etc., the dopamine will ease into oxytocin, which is cozier, but it's not as wild and passionate and crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that. And I wish I could tell every person thinking of getting married.
Yeah.
How long you been with him? If it hasn't been 18 months, just sit. Don't. Yeah. Anyway, I learned it, and maybe I can help a few people. I hope I can.
Yeah. No, wise words.
So important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience can learn from you, from your 2 divorces, and that building a relationship on infatuation probably, if you can make it past the 18 months is good, but maybe not the great basis for a relationship.
Yeah. Wait. Just don't do anything that you can't easily undo. And keep being friends. Keep being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it was, besides the infatuation issue, and I would have stayed with this one, but my accommodation, I was speaking up more awkwardly, I think, and telling him a few things I didn't like. And then we would go to therapy, and maybe 6 weeks later I'd tell him something else I didn't like, and he'd haul me off to therapy. And the therapist, it wasn't a wise situation. He went to the husband and I went to his wife, but we didn't do that much together.
Oh.
It was, looking back, it was not smart.
Yeah. My wife and I, we went to premarital counseling before we got married, and it was so helpful. We never stopped. We still go. We've been married coming up on, this year will be coming up on 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. We still go either once a month or every other month.
Wonderful.
It's really
wonderful.
Really helpful.
Uh-huh.
invaluable, I would even say. Yeah.
So anyway, I was playing around with not accommodating, and it didn't go well. I'll just say that. But of course, I'd taught him that I was a person who accommodated, in some unconscious way in that first year of courtship and all that. I was so nice. Anyway.
Yeah, so I've learned that there's actually a lot of women that listen to the show too, that are the significant others or spouses. You're speaking to them now. Some of them are being overly accommodating. And what I mean is they know about the addiction, they don't like the addiction, and they're just a walking mat. I see A Course in Miracles as one of your favorite books. First, what is A Course in Miracles, and how has it helped you, and how do you think it could help somebody has an addictive nature?
Well, it does have a workbook. It's got theory in the front of the book, and then workbook day by day, 365 in the back. And I do love tuning into it every day.
For people that aren't familiar with A Course in Miracles,
it's hard to explain it. It was channeled by Helen Schuckman, I think is her name. It's certainly loving.
It's a classic.
It's loving.
A classic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's been around.
Now, it still makes God a he all the time. Mm-hmm. And God is a force, a source. God is in everything, every acorn.
Right.
And so I edit the book as I go, and, my book's pretty messed up. But it is beautiful and comforting, and so much about forgiveness.
Oh, that's a big one there.
Big one.
For forgiveness. For myself, that's something daily I have to practice, is just forgiving myself. And when I say forgive, I don't mean in religious terms. I just, the addictive side of me can be really hard on myself, and I just have to forgive myself and move on. Coming from an ex-nun, how has your definition of forgiveness grown?
Let me think if I can say the quote from Course in Miracles. All the past except its beauty is gone, and nothing is left but a blessing. That helps me.
Nice.
And Course in Miracles would say the past, it doesn't exist. If you want to focus on that, honeypot, well, go ahead, but it's not real anymore. It's gone. That helps.
I am so incredibly grateful for you to be here and on this. I can't wait for our listeners to hear you. You are an incredible blessing to this planet Earth. Thank you so much. And so how can people get a hold of you?
Okay, but first of all, thank you so much for having me. It is so sweet. I don't know if there's a better word. It is so wonderful to be received by you. It's so wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Eric, very, very, very much.
You're welcome.
And I do have a website, maryfagan.com, just so they stick an E in Fagan. M-A-R-Y, fine. F-E-A-G-A-N.com.
One more time for him.
maryfagan.com. M-A-R-Y-F-E-A-G-A-N.com.
All right, well, be sure to check out Mary's website. Close today with the quote from Zig Ziglar that says, "You are designed for accomplishment, you are engineered for success, and you are endowed with the seeds of greatness." Woo! Stay powerful.
That's great.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, then contact Eric at powerfuleric.com or call 314-717-0377 for a free no-obligation consultation. Remember, you are powerful.
This is a public service message from Porn Talk and Powerful Eric. Hi, this is Powerful Eric. Please take a moment to rate and review the show and subscribe on Apple Podcast, formerly iTunes. Your rating and review helps others to hear about the show. It does make a difference. So please, rate and review us on Apple Podcast, and please subscribe. This has been a public service message from Porn Talk and Powerful Eric.